Wondering how to fall completely in love with the people and things that surround you at home? I've spent the last 15 years studying how and where families thrive and what relational and house characteristics ignite us with that homey feeling. On this podcast, we uncover how our brains process the people we live with and the houses we live in so we can confidently create our homes to be wonder-filled connection magnets. Ready to give up the decision fatigue, comparison hives, overwhelm ulcers, and confusion chaos? You are in the right place. I'm your host, Carly Thornock. Welcome to Becoming Home. Hey, homies, so glad that you're here today. And today, I feel like I need to roll out the red carpet. I'm super excited to be talking with Ginny Yurich. And she's just laughing her head off because maybe she doesn't think of herself as royalty, but I certainly do. Ginny has been a game changer for so many of us. I know that you all are freaking out as you're driving or you're going on your morning run listening to this because you're like, she is the mastermind behind the 1,000 hours outside world-changing movement. This is getting our kids outside. This is getting us all the courage to just send them outside to play. And did you know that she has written a book and that it is coming out in a couple of months? Get excited, everyone. The 1,000 hours outside movement is expanding even further. You guys, Ginny, welcome so much. Is that okay to say? Welcome so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. I'm thrilled to be here.
Okay. So I was wondering if you would just tell us the basic lowdown. Clearly, you have a company, you have a podcast, you have a book, you have an Instagram about this. So this is not a 30-second answer, but why get outside? What's like the meat of it? What's your elevator pitch? Why do we care?
It's such a huge question. Wait, this is the 30-second one? I just want to let you know that no one has ever said to me, welcome so much. So I really like that. And I do feel so welcomed. And I'm so glad to be here. Listen, you got to go outside. And I didn't know that you had to go outside. But the reason that you have to go outside is because it helps your kids. And it also helps you as an adult with every facet of development. It is helping cognition. It is helping physical growth, emotional growth. It is helping social growth. And then if you are interested, it's also helping spiritual growth. So that's why we have to get our kids outside. It actually really matters a lot.
Well, that was a really good 30 seconds. The end. Thanks for being on the show. It's great.
Goodbye so much.
Goodbye so much. I feel like the beauty of this is you can be doing 1,000 hours outside with your kids and reap all the same benefits, or you send them all out by themselves and you reap all the same benefits. So this is like a win-win-win situation for every mom in the whole entire world. You have a story of your own, Ginny. What's your story? How did you get your kids outside? How did you get the courage yourself to be like, sorry, we're not going to be playing on the iPad. We're going to be playing in the mud.
There's no courage here, Carly. No courage. My story is that I was a really awful mom when my kids were young. And I won't even say that I'm a great mom now. But when I say I was an awful mom, I just really struggled with it. I mean, I was not good. And I know some people that transition better. I was expecting to be phenomenal. I will say that. And then it didn't work. And right from the beginning, it was hard. And it was way harder than I was expecting. And I spent the first 3 years of motherhood, in which we had 3 kids, I spent those years really in a dark spot. Truth be told, I was wishing the days away. I felt like a failure all the time. Morning, night, weekends never ended. You just have this unending list of needs. Whether you have 1 kid or whether you have 2, doesn't matter the number. They have, I feel like at times, an insurmountable amount of needs. And so I just felt like a failure. I also didn't know what to do with our time. These are really long days. Like if you had transitioned, sort of no matter what situation you're in, but I had transitioned from working and really up until almost the day I had our first son, I worked up until Friday and then he was born on Monday. So working and the days are filled and you're productive. And all of a sudden it's kind of like, what am I supposed to do with this child? And my husband was, we worked normal hours, but he had a long commute. So you're talking like a 10-hour day with a 2-week-old. Like what exactly are you supposed to do? And he didn't really sleep. And anyway, so I just really struggled with that transition and then tacked on a couple more kids. And we spent a lot of time going to programs because when I looked around me, that's what everyone else was doing. It was like, well, I'll enroll in Mommy and Me music and I'll go to Little Kickers soccer practice. And it was expensive and it was also a lot of output. And I would go to these things, even just the library. Now that's free. The library is great, right? But I would go and I would have to, it was like this Herculean effort to pack all of the things.
I'm like
You got the
sweaty
diaper
thinking
bag.
about it. I remember
Yeah,
those
you got to
days.
get them. You got to get them all in the car seats and they're all crying and you have to have the stroller and you have to fold up the stroller and it's heavy and you have to have the bag of books and then you have to maneuver everyone through the parking lot. It's kind of dangerous. This one's wanting to run ahead. And then you're having to facilitate them in this environment that maybe isn't all that natural for them, right? They don't want to sit and listen to this person's story. And then the person's going to dump out all these toys and everyone's fighting and I'm trying to nurse and I can't go and I can't interject because I'm sitting on the floor. My boob is out. So, I mean, it's just like this thing, right? And then it's like, okay, you do it all in reverse and it's 11 a.m. I'm like, we haven't even made lunch. Like, this is awful. And so I don't know. I had a really hard time with it and I wanted to enjoy it, but I wasn't. So here's what happened. Here's the change. The change is that I had a friend at MOPS, which is another program that I did, right? You're trying to like let your kid go to it's mothers of preschoolers and you're trying to let your kid go to the child care class like for 2 hours a week. Our kids are always crying. So they would always bring them back to me. It was a thing, but I had a friend at MOPS and she told me about this educational philosopher from the 1800s. I didn't know she was from the 1800s at the time, or I probably would have not listened at all. But she just said, Charlotte Mason says, like she came in all authoritatively, right?
Yeah.
Charlotte Mason says kids should be outside for 4 to 6 hours a day whenever the weather is tolerable. And I was like, huh? 4 to 6 hours a day. This is outlandish. No kid can do anything for 4 to 6 hours a day. And I'm thinking of like, I'm trying to occupy the kid's time. I'm like making homemade Play-Doh. And I'm like, well, that lasts 22 minutes. And I mean, it's just nothing lasts for 4 to 6 hours. I was like, friend, this is a bad idea. Like, no, this lady doesn't know what she's talking about. Well, anyway, so this friend, but I just thought that. I didn't actually say it out loud. So this friend was like, well, we should try it. I was like, no, thank you. You know what? Yeah, right. I was like, have you been to the library program? This would be like that times 6. It's 6 times as long. So anyway, but you want to have friends when you're a young mom too. It's like such a struggle to have relationships and you feel lonely. So I agreed to go. So this was back in 2011 in September, the fall in Michigan. It's beautiful. And so this friend said, we're going to meet at this park from 9 in the morning till 1 in the afternoon. Bring a picnic blanket and your lunch. And I was like, oh, like what else? Books and manipulatives and like, should I bring the water table and wait, what's going to happen? And I just was so convinced it was going to crash and burn. This wasn't even like a playground, Carly. There was like no playground equipment. It was like grass. I was like, okay. But anyway, it turned out to be such a fantastic day. I say it was the best day of my life because it was the first good day I had as a mom. I'd not had a good day up until that point. And what happened was the kids played. Who knew? Who knew that they would play? And she had 3 and I had 3. And our youngest were babies. So we held our babies and we had conversation and they fell asleep when they fell asleep and they sat on the blanket and they played with the grass and the older kids just ran around. And I have no clue what they did, but I do know that when we left at 1 o'clock, they all fell asleep in the car. And I was like, this is a miracle. And all of a sudden it was 4 p.m. We drove around for some time and the day passed. And so that was the change for me. That was the catalyst because I felt like if I could have a good day, I'm going to be a better mom and I'm going to be more present. And so the last 12 years since that day, it's coming up on 12 years, has been this journey of learning how time outside helps with every facet of child development, and it also helps us in our growth and ability to be present as adults.
That's amazing. It's crazy the magic that's nature, that's like outside, that's the sunshine, even the rain.
Even the rain. The rain clears the air. So the number came from, people sometimes ask about the number 1,000. So it came partially from that Charlotte Mason. She said 4 to 6 hours a day whenever the weather is tolerable, which I thought was a good caveat because depending on where you live, if you're in the South right now, in Texas, it's like 117 degrees. So that's not tolerable. And in Michigan in February, it's not tolerable. So there was a caveat there, but this sort of general premise that kids should be outside for extended periods of time. And then Angela Hanscom, who is more current, Charlotte Mason's from the 1800s, but Angela Hanscom is a pediatric occupational therapist who wrote this phenomenal book called Balanced and Barefoot, where she talks about this decline in skills of kids and that, the wait list for pediatric occupational therapy services is now so long. And she says that not in every case, but in a lot of cases, play outside really helps with that. And maybe you wouldn't need those services if the kids are playing outside more. So she recommends 3 hours a day on average, all the way throughout childhood. That includes the teens. And then, so that's about 1,000 hours in a year. And the average kid back in 2011, when we first started playing outside, the average kid was outside for about 1,200 hours a year. So like 18 to 20 hours a week. So it's just kind of like a mesh of all of those things. And I lived that way for 2 years where we really prioritized nature time before I started writing. And it was really impactful. It answered a lot of the modern day parenting problems that I think a lot of us face. So that's where the number comes from.
Amazing. What are these problems? Because I'm sure we're all in the thick of it.
The problems are dealing with screens. That's obviously a top one. Like, how do we deal with screens? Like, this is a really hard thing. And so I think that our best way to deal with screens is to fill our lives and fill them with good things, so that there's not as much time left over. I think our best days are the ones where it's like, there's no time for a movie because we were at the beach or we were on a hike or we were outside playing cards or whatever the thing is. So I think that's a huge one. I think there's the problem of our own selves feeling fulfilled, like feeling like we've lost ourselves, we've lost our sense of self, but we can find ourselves out in nature as well. We can also build relationships. So a huge problem in our day is loneliness. In fact, I just talked to Justin Whitmore Early, who came out with a book called Made for People this week. And he was citing this study that came out, like a huge study that just came out. I don't know. It's not from the CDC, but it's like one of those big organizations. And he held up this stack of paper that's about the epidemic of loneliness. And so this is a huge problem in our time. And I think as moms, like, it's actually really hard to have a bunch of little kids over in your house because everyone's fighting over the toys and they're, is it safe for this kid's age? And you're having to childproof and it's just kind of a mess. But if you go outside, if you take that same group of kids outside into an open space where you're far from cars and maybe you're back down a path a little ways, you can actually have a conversation with a friend and you can build these solid relationships. So it's helping with also preparing our kids for a future that is rapidly changing. So I actually talked to a young man today. He's 20 years old. He's got his own podcast and he's trying to get college kids to hang out without their phones. It's called the Reconnect movement. Really cool thing.
Oh, that's cool.
But he's talking about the world that he's entering is one that's rapidly changing. And so in order to prepare our kids for that, they've got to be resilient and they have to be creative and they have to be able to think outside the box. They have to be able to pivot. Gone are the days when kids would have a career for 30 years out of college and stick with that their whole life. Like, they're going to have a bunch of different colleagues. They're going to have to be quick on their feet. So by inserting play into your life, you're helping to prepare your kids for that as well. So it's a lot of things that are solved is probably the wrong word, but helped just by prioritizing time outside.
And what are your dreams for your kids? As you've done this for the past 12 years, what do you want your children to be? Because gone are the days, and I don't know, maybe you're like me. I'm assuming for me, I don't want my kids to be in a job for 35 years, especially one that they don't like, especially one that isn't active or good for their health necessarily, or mental health or spiritual connectedness. What do you want for your kids? What is this all leading to adult-wise?
That's an interesting question because I've never thought about it. I would say I don't really have any. I think that my dreams for my kids is that they would follow whatever their path is. And so I think that as an adult, like, your path winds for the most part. And I would hope that they are able to trust themselves enough to follow whatever it is that their next step is. And I think that's the best way to live life, is to say, look, I want to live a full life today and tomorrow will take care of itself. And so I guess I would hope that they would stay true to that no matter what that ends up looking like for them. I think it will look different. We've got 5 kids. So I think it will look different for all of them, that we all have these special things that we bring to the world and we don't have to be in a box and we can try different things and we can change if certain things don't work. So I don't know, that's an interesting question. What would you say?
I think I'd say the exact same thing. When we're outside, that's all it is. It's like, and you cross this log and then you go through the meadow because that's what's next. And there isn't really a trail or a plan or like the way to do nature. It's just the way to do life. I think that is one of the best things I love about being outside with my kids. And that is what I hope for them in the future too, that exact same thing. Listen to your body, go with like your seasons and your flows and understand how that feels and how to make
Yeah.
decisions. Yeah, that's fun. So aside from feeling like an actual person who likes life again, when you started going outside, was there anything that you had to change, or did it feel like a pretty easy transition to doing more outside time?
Yeah, it was an easy transition because I just, instead of spending 4 hours trying to get to the swim class, because it takes 4 hours,
Amen.
by the
Yes,
time
it
you
does.
pack up, right? By the time you pack up and get home and then you have to eat lunch, we switched to, and I know not everybody could do that, right? Like I was at home with the kids, but if you're not home with your kids during the day, this is something that you could do in the evenings. So maybe instead of having your dinner at home, maybe you pack it up and then when you're picking your kids up from school, or if they're at, a daycare center, then you take your dinner with you and you take it to the park and you eat it there instead of bringing it home. So there's different things that you can do. You can utilize the weekends. But for me, it wasn't a big change just because I was already trying to make it through the day. And this just made it a whole lot easier.
Yeah, so much easier. And what I love about this is you get through your frontal lobe managers of like, hey, we're going to go outside. And so you're like, let's bring the water table, let's pack the things or whatever. And it lasts for 22 minutes. And then you realize that they just find sticks. And then you realize that they just are face down in the sand, blowing at it for 3 hours because that's what they want to do. And you realize that your job isn't to control your kids' lives. And I think that's like
Mhm.
maybe like a subtle message. You don't go out and say, you all are controlling parents. You should take your kids outside so you can all get off this control thing. But it's something that I personally have taken from your work of relax. You don't need to worry so much about controlling or micromanaging or helicoptering. You don't have to provide these step-by-step experiences for your kids to be successful. The world provides it for them. So let them
Mhm.
be in this beautiful natural world where everything is it feels like magically appropriate for their level
Mhm.
that they engage
Yeah.
with it.
Yeah,
Oh,
nature meets them where they're at for sure. Dr. Peter Gray wrote a book called Free to Learn. He says children are biologically designed to educate themselves. So that's a huge statement. I think that we do look at ourselves as adults like we have to control, we have to educate them, we have to make sure they do X, Y, and Z. And he says, nope, nope, nope. Like they come into the world ready to learn on their own. And so if you can just trust yourself enough to take a step back, if you can trust them enough to take a step back, they are going to thrive. And Angela Hanscom says the same thing. So in that Balanced and Barefoot book, she says something along the lines of, as adults, we feel like we know best, but the child's neurological system begs to differ. They
ah,
know what's next in their set of development. Doesn't she say the best things? That book is incredible.
that is so good. Oh, that's really good. Yeah, their neurology knows best. As great as
Yeah.
we think we are, we actually didn't mind control them developing in utero. Maybe we should let
No,
the same systems.
no, and even when they're babies, and obviously kids are differently abled and they come to things at different time periods. But if you were to track a child through this stage of rolling over, crawling, pulling up to walk, and toddling, I mean, they can't even talk. They don't even know what day of the week it is. And yet they are learning these monumental tasks without any input from any of the smartest people on the planet. They're doing it on their own. So I think it's a disservice to our kids when we forget that. And I think we forget it because we put kids in school so early that we forget that, hey, no, if you take a step back, they're going to continue on this path of growth both through their movements and through their education, all on their own if we give them some time and space to do it.
Amen. That's so good. Your book. Do you dive into all of this in your book? What's your favorite part of your book?
I don't remember.
What I write? I'm like, I
Well,
don't know what
because
I wrote.
I don't even have a copy of it yet. So it's like you send it off and it's been a while. But the premise of the book, and this is actually my fourth book. So here, I'll tell you a little secret. I'm not so good at this. My last three books all have the same title. They're all called 1,000 Hours Outside. So I have three books out called 1,000 Hours Outside. And this is the debut book with its own title. It's called Until the Streetlights Come On. So it's about how kids used to play. They used to play and have freedom. But the premise is that we don't have to sacrifice today for tomorrow. And I think that a lot of us live that way. And in fact,
Oh,
that's
yeah.
how I was living, which is like, okay, well, you have to enroll and you've got to get your kid in this and that, and they're going to fall behind. And so you sacrifice your joy and your mental health and your time for connection and your love and zest for life. You just turn that off because you think, well, I got to prepare these kids for tomorrow. We have to get this done. We have to get that done. And I just have learned over the past decade that I don't think that works. I think that the best way to live is to say, look, like we're diving in for today. What does today have to offer? And we're going to grow today, and we're going to learn today, and then tomorrow is going to be great, and our kids are going to be prepared for that. So that's a big premise of the book. And I think I have like an advanced reader copy coming this week, so then I'll be able to reread it and answer your question more effectively.
Remember, that's totally how I am. You know what? It comes actually, I think this is such a great thing, because when you are downloading from God and from the world around you, and you're so integrated, it's not like, oh, I thought of this great idea, go outside for 1,000 hours. It's like you are the channel for this truth that's coming through. And I think that's beautiful.
Yeah, you're just a mouthpiece. There was a really cool thing there. I don't remember where I read it, but someone was saying about how like we live our lives, like when we live our lives basically for retirement. And I think that's kind of culturally like what we're doing. It's like, okay, well, we're going to have an awful day today so we can study for this test, so we can study for tomorrow, so we can get that degree, so we can work. And then we retire. And I think I might have been Dr. Michael Rucker's book. It's about fun. It's called The Fun Habit. And then there's this man named Alistair Humphreys who kind of talks about the same thing. So it might be in either of those books, but people's writings. But it's like this concept of, if that's how you live, like you can't assume you're going to get to retirement and know how to enjoy yourself, because you're not. Like if you have spent your whole entire life preparing for tomorrow and preparing for this thing that's way out there, well, when you get there, you're not going to know. You're not going to have the skill set of how to relax and enjoy it. And so I think part of life is about like, how do I learn to enjoy today for what it has to offer, even in this hard season of child rearing, or even I just lost my job, or even, all of these things that happen. And not that they're perfect, but that if we come to today with our best efforts, then it's a better today and a better tomorrow.
Amen to that again. I just keep saying it like glory, hallelujah. Amen, amen, amen. I was reading a book. It was Dr. Joe Dispenza's Becoming Supernatural. And that was what I read this morning of your neurology is going to just keep playing over and over unless you make a change. And so when you think that you're going to feel better when you healed is what he's talking about, or when you retire, you're like your neurology, coming back to even our kids' neurology, it's pre-wired to feel incomplete and to feel stressed. And so as we train our neurology in advance to feel safe and excited now, then that's when we can enjoy tomorrow even better. Otherwise, we don't have the pathways. We cannot, not because we don't want to, but just because we don't have the hardware.
We haven't learned. We haven't learned how to do it. There's a book by Gay Hendricks called The Big Leap. And in that book, he talks about learning how to sit with your good feelings for longer and longer and longer periods of time. And I thought that was a really cool one too. Like it is something that you have to learn. And I just think that living for retirement or living for whatever might be down the way, it doesn't work out well. And actually, I was just talking to this man named Dan Buettner who talks about the blue zones. So like the blue zones are places in the world, right, where people are most likely to become centenarians. They're living longer. And he says that the two most dangerous years of your life are the year that you're born and the year that you retire.
Whoa.
Yeah. People lose their sense of purpose, and there's an increased rate of death the year that you retire.
Who would have guessed? I mean, when you back up and you look at how we live our life, it seems like, of course, but that's incredible. We got to prepare for these transitions. That's fun. Yeah. And prepare by being centered today, by loving today, retire today.
Yeah.
Retire outside today. Because isn't that what we all think about? We're like, then I can have time to go on that hike or go fishing or sit in my
you can do it now.
Do it now. Do it today. Okay. So Ginny, my mission is to help moms create 100 stories inside of their house. So to take the best parts of nature as a big part of this and to incorporate that into their inside life so that on the days when weather isn't permitting, we can take our outside frame of mind and bring it inside and reap some of the benefits. It's not perfect because our houses are very man-made, especially now, but what would you say is the best way that you've seen to incorporate nature and the feeling of nature inside your home?
Oh, there's a lot of good ways. So yesterday we had a monarch hatch right in our kitchen. So there's fun ways like that. Like you can actually bring nature in and you can play with it and you can put wildflowers in your Play-Doh. So there's a lot of ways that you can actually bring nature into your home. and to manipulate it and touch it and feel it and smell it and herbs and all that kind of stuff right in your house. But then also another way is through stories. I think what you're talking about, like stories are so impactful because they pull in all of our senses. And I would say that a good majority of the read alouds that tend to be people's favorites or the ones that stick with you are very nature based. So, for example, I remember in fourth grade we read Where the Red Fern Grows.
We just finished that
Uh,
one yesterday at our house.
did you cry?
We cried. We
Did the
all
kids
cried.
cry?
Yes.
I mean, I
All.
remember, I was in public school and I just remember sitting on the carpet in the fourth grade class and like everyone was sobbing. There was like Kleenex boxes everywhere. But those are the types of books that really stick with you, like Trumpet of the Swan, and they're very nature based. And so I think that stories help you, especially ones that have a lot of nature in them. They help you to immerse yourself in the environment and they're sensory experiences even without being sensory experiences.
Yeah, that's powerful. That's great. Do you find that you can never get enough books? What's your book situation inside your house? You have beautiful
Wow.
bookshelves right now.
Well,
Everybody go look at this on YouTube if you're listening to it. Some of my
yeah,
favorites, I can like pick them out on your shelf. Like, I love that book. I love that book. I see the nature influences. But what do you do about
yeah,
books?
I mean, we just got 3 new bookshelves, so that would probably be the answer to that question. Like literally just put the third one up yesterday. But I get a lot of books sent to me because of podcasting. So I just like books. I like books. I like any kind of book. I like all of them. And our kids like to read. So we definitely have books everywhere. And our read aloud times are a hot mess always. Kids are always like jabbing at each other and making fun, but we do it anyway. It's not perfect. It does not look like anyone's like Instagram or YouTube videos. Ours is like, stop. Can you stop? Can you stop? They're like, can I get a snack? I got to go to the bathroom.
Shut up, shut up, shut up. Listen to the story.
But we read My Side of the Mountain earlier this year. And so, in My Side of the Mountain, it's like Sam Gribley is his name, and he like forages and he stays alive out in the wilderness. So like, even though our kids, I mean, our oldest is 15, they're kind of making fun of it. They're just wanting to be silly and make a fuss and do different things. But, when we're outside and we'll find like mulberries hanging in a tree, they'll be like, I'm Sam Gribley, I'm foraging. So it just does something to you. I liked it. Greta Eskridge talked about it in Adventuring Together, that even if, like, she talks about her own mom maybe had some health issues and couldn't outdoor adventure as much, but they adventured inside through their reading. And I love that.
That's so fun. There's some research that came out during COVID that said the general standing research about homes is the more access to nature you have, the more healthy and happy you are. So like the more windows or the more plants or et cetera. And even during COVID, they found that if you put on a nature documentary, like even on a screen or have a picture of nature, it will elicit some of these same responses. And I think the same is going to be true for books as they study more. The more you can get into adventure and outside in any way that feels real to your body, you're going to have these same effects. Obviously, being outside comes with all the sensory experiences, all the spiritual connection, all the energetic grounding, all of the togetherness, all of the meeting friends and meeting animals and meeting plants. But as we're also inside, we can be doing some of these other things to just maximize.
Absolutely. Have some plants, grow some herbs. There's lots of things that you can do indoors for sure. And it's absolutely true. They say having up pictures of nature, put on a bird song tape or something. Yeah, all the things. A tape is like tape dates me. Put on a bird song, Spotify.
A cassette? That's totally me too. When I think about being a child in nature, it was like the recorder and like walking around trying to like physically record it and then listen to it. So funny.
Mm-hmm.
We're old. Okay.
Yeah.
No, we're not. We're so young and adventurous. What do you want all the people in the world? If you could just insert something into every mom's heart, what would it be?
These are huge questions. If I could insert something into everyone's heart, I think I would say to not worry. That's what I think I would say.
I love that.
That our kids are going to grow. And I think it's hard to let go. But I also just think that parenting is a journey of letting go while our kids are growing into themselves. And so you have to let go. Like you have to give them time. Otherwise you're going to hit the end years and you're going to be really in a hard spot because you haven't had time to practice. And I think that's really how it goes. It's like our little kids are so close to the ground so that when they fall, they don't get hurt as much. And, they fall and they get a little scrape, or they can't climb as high when they're 1, 2 years old. And so this is the period of time for you to learn to allow them to trust their own bodies. And so it just becomes this stretching over time so that by the time they're driving, and that's where we're at driving, that you have had 10, 15 years of practice of not worrying.
Wow. That's what we're going to call this episode. Don't worry with Ginny Yurich. It's going to be great. That's
There we
so
go.
profound. It's so simple, but it's so, so profound. Ginny, are you ready for a speed round of
Yep,
house
I'm ready.
preference 101? Okay, here we go. What is the one thing in your house that represents you and your personality? If you could be an object.
Bookshelves,
Yeah.
piano, bookshelves. I don't know.
Piano.
There's 2.
Okay.
Sorry.
That's good. You
Do
can
I
totally.
Do I lose points for that?
No
Do I
points.
lose? Okay. All right. No points.
These points are really important. You lost 2 rubles
Okay.
on that one. How do you like to tuck in your sheets? Everybody has their own way, but you and your bed,
Untucked.
untucked all the way around.
Yeah, nothing is tucked in.
Love it.
I
love
don't
it.
have time for that. We're outside.
We're outside. Who's inside?
I
Do
don't
you
know.
prefer vacuum cleaners or brooms?
Vacuum cleaner, 100%. I would use it everywhere because it just sucks it up. Otherwise, you have to put it in the dustpan. So it's an extra step.
It's like 5 extra steps because it never all gets in the dustpan, right? I'm looking for, do you have a handheld vacuum you like?
No, I don't even know what vacuum we have, but we have one, and I would pick that any day over the broom.
I love you. What is your favorite thing to keep at an arm's reach in your pantry?
Ooh, okay, so we went on this trip to Utah with my daughter. It was
Did you
so
feel
fun.
my love when you
and-
came?
Yes. And we went down the Green River for a 5-day rafting trip, and they served chicken salad sandwiches and also peanut butter and jelly on these thick pita breads. And I'm going to send you the link because you can put it in the show notes because
Amen.
it was so, so good. So anyways, now we're obsessed with getting the pita breads. They only sell it at one store by us, but we go and we get the specific brand of pita bread and we put our sandwiches on it, and it's the best thing ever.
That's great. Look in the show notes for that, because that's going to be great. And last question is, what's the weird thing that you do around your house, or the little quirk that you have, or a little obsession that your kids will be like, oh, remember growing up how mom always made us load the dishwasher that way or clean the bathroom that way?
I don't know. Our house is just kind of a mess. So I don't know if that's a quirk or not a quirk. They're going to grow up and be like, yeah, my mom was a total mess because we just are out doing stuff and we don't get to it. But something that I do around the house that's a little funky. Give me an example. What's something someone else has said?
Somebody said if there's dirt in the cracks of their hardwoods, they can't focus on anything else. And so their family always teases her about vacuuming out her hardwoods. Somebody else said,
oh no, so no, it gets out of the messy. So I have none of the things.
I roll with you. I'm like, what my kids laugh about? They'll be like, Mom, can you wash me a cup? I'm thirsty. That would be the
yeah, there's no laundry. I have nothing to wear. Yeah, I think maybe that is yes. But I do think that someday I'll have time for all of that. And so right now I'm like, well, we're going to go adventure and live life and do things. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's definitely not. I mean, one of the quirks that actually, here's one. So one of the quirks is that I'm always looking for a certain book. Because we have books everywhere. So then I'm like, okay, I need to read this for this certain thing, or someone's coming up and I want to take a picture of their book. And then I got bookshelves all over the place. So then, and there's piles of books. There's piles of books on my counter, and there's piles of books on the floor. And that's why I just got these new bookshelves. So I think that my kids will grow up meaning like, can someone help me find this book? And I'll be like, this is what it looks like. This is the title. And everyone's on a hunt for it. So sometimes we find it and sometimes we don't.
I want to be your friend. I'm ready to come over. This is the way I want to live my life.
Help me find books.
You would be right at home in my house. I look over at my nightstand and I was talking to my brother the other day, and he's like, people have one book on their nightstand. And I was like, how do they even do it? He's like, I think I have at least 25. And I was like, yeah, that's me too. And I live in an RV. We travel, and I'm still like, these are my companions for the travel, my 50 favorite books.
That's hilarious. Yeah, because they overflow. They're on the nightstand and then they end up being on the floor. And then you've got another pile around the corner of the nightstand. I'm curious about your sticky notes.
Oh, my sticky notes. These are ideas about fun houses and places I want to look for different retreats to hold. But I have sticky notes everywhere. I have books everywhere, like different ideas. And I also need a visual reminder of whatever I'm excited about, because I just get excited about things all over the place. And so I have to put it on a sticky note so I remember. What does this one say? Check into San Antonio. That sounds fun.
It does sound fun.
Yeah, totally. Oh my gosh, Ginny. Well, this has been an hour of like mic drop and heart swell moments. So thank you so much for being here. Everybody, you can check out Ginny at 1000, the number 1000, hoursoutside.com, or you can find her on Instagram. You can find her on our podcast. I highly recommend all of them. Even for all y'all who are like, I don't love Instagram, it's worth it to get on her feed because it's uplifting. She's always having cool experts who are authors, and there's science behind it all and inspiration. And just like it feels like talking to her, you can sense her sparkly eyes through everything that she does. Look forward to her book coming in November. Aww. What else, Ginny? Did I miss anything?
That was all the things, and I'm so glad I know about the sticky notes. I really appreciate you having me on. It's really been an honor to talk to your listeners. Love everything that you're doing, and I'm going to go back and listen to the episode about Jennifer Pepito I already know, but there was another one where you were talking about the health person. So I can't wait to go back and listen to that one. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes, totally. I'm excited. The health one, or the close one? I have a few health ones. Both. Yeah. There's some good stuff coming down the chute in the next couple weeks. I think you'll enjoy it.
Yeah, I'm so excited. Well, thank you so much for having me.
Ginny, always a pleasure. I can't wait to show up on your front porch with a basket of books. It's going to be a lot of fun.
That would be the best ever. Thanks, Carly.
Talk to you soon. Hey, if you're loving what you're hearing and you want to know more, I invite you to go over to carlythornock.com and you can pick up a free guide. These are the 3 biggest mistakes that people make when setting up their houses. And I don't want you to make the same mistakes. And of course, in true Carly fashion, you know it's going to be a lot less about the house and a lot more about your perspective about the house, but with some good housey tips thrown in. Go over to carlythornock.com and you can pick up that today.